Welcome to the English Boost podcast. So I have a question for you. How exactly do your mornings start today?
Oh boy.
Were you up before the sun, maybe doing a 5-mile run, drinking something bright green, and, feeling like you've already conquered the universe?
I mean, that is the dream, right?
Right. Or were you, like the rest of us, just standing in the middle of your kitchen staring blankly at the wall, trying to remember why you even walked in there?
Yeah, holding an empty coffee mug.
Exactly. Just treating the discovery of a matching pair of clean socks as this massive personal victory for the day.
The reality for most of us definitely leans heavily toward the kitchen staring. I mean, that early morning brain fog, the rush to just get out the door, it makes the idea of a highly optimized, perfect morning seem like complete fantasy.
It really does. And that chaotic reality is exactly what we are exploring today. We're looking at some fascinating source material that explores the heavy, often overwhelming pressure of early morning self-discipline.
It's a huge burden we put on ourselves.
It is. We're going to talk about why the typical approach to morning routines actually sets you up for failure before breakfast even starts. And more importantly, how adopting a tiny, almost invisible daily routine can completely transform not just your self-trust, but specifically your English skills.
Yeah, and the problem really begins with this fundamental biological disconnect. It's the disconnect between who we are at night and who we are in the morning.
Oh, night you versus morning you.
Exactly. We buy into this illusion of the flawless morning routine. So we sit in bed at night feeling motivated, and we write these incredibly ambitious lists.
Like tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m.
Right. I'll wake up at 5, exercise for an hour, journal, meditate, read a chapter of a book, study advanced English grammar.
Basically become a brand new, highly effective human being the second the alarm rings.
Exactly. Night you is incredibly confident. Night you is like this superhero looking at the future and declaring, tomorrow we change everything.
Okay, let's unpack this because I feel personally attacked. Night you is essentially writing a massive check, right? But morning you has absolutely zero funds in the bank to cash it.
That's the perfect way to describe it.
Morning you is just trying to find the willpower to open both eyes. But let me push back on this for a second. If we don't aim high, aren't we just settling? Like, isn't setting huge, intimidating goals supposed to be the thing that pushes us out of our comfort zone?
Well, aiming high is necessary for a long-term vision, absolutely. But it operates terribly as a strategy for a groggy Tuesday morning.
Why is that, though?
Because when you set an overly ambitious plan that requires, say, an hour of unbroken focus and peak energy,
Yeah.
you're completely ignoring biological reality. You're ignoring sleep inertia and executive fatigue.
So you bounce that massive check immediately.
You do. When you fail to execute that perfect plan at 6:30 in the morning, you instantly generate this profound sense of disappointment.
Wow, yeah. The guilt arises incredibly early in the day.
Exactly. You haven't even had a cup of coffee yet, and you already feel a heavy sense of failure.
And that early guilt acts like a tax on the rest of your day, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Every single task after that carries that emotional weight.
It does. And think about how this affects language learning. If learning English was item number 4 on that impossible morning list, it instantly gets categorized as a failure.
You tell yourself, well, the morning is ruined. I'll just practice my English later this afternoon.
Right. And then what happens? The afternoon gets hijacked by a work crisis.
Always.
The evening is consumed by making dinner, putting out fires, and just dealing with life. So later becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow just keeps becoming tomorrow again.
It's a vicious cycle. And the tragedy of that cycle is that you start internalizing the failure. You look at your unused English books on the desk and conclude, I must be lazy. I just don't have enough willpower.
But the source material points out something so crucial here. Struggling to maintain an unrealistic, massive routine doesn't mean you are lazy.
Thank goodness.
Right. It means you are tired, busy, and overextended. Relying on sheer willpower is a losing game anyway. Willpower is a finite cognitive resource. It literally depletes as you make decisions throughout the day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The source offers a complete redefinition of what discipline actually is, moving away from that willpower model entirely.
Yeah, this shift changes everything.
Because when we hear the word self-discipline, the default image is usually like a drill sergeant.
Oh, for sure. The yelling military guy.
Exactly. We picture this angry, critical voice in our head yelling at us to work harder, move faster, stop being weak. We associate discipline with punishment.
But the material suggests true discipline isn't a drill sergeant at all.
No. It says it's a quiet, reassuring handshake with yourself.
I love that image.
It's simply the act of keeping one tiny, almost invisible promise to yourself to start the day. Just giving yourself tangible proof that you showed up.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really need to look at the psychological mechanism behind that handshake.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you try the drill sergeant approach, your brain actually perceives the routine as a threat.
Wait, really? A threat?
Yes, it spikes your cortisol. You are literally fighting yourself. But when you reframe discipline as keeping one tiny promise, say, committing to reading just one single sentence in English, while the kettle boils, you remove the threat.
Because it's so small, it doesn't trigger the alarm bells.
Exactly. And when you actually complete that tiny action, your brain releases dopamine.
Yeah, everyone loves dopamine.
We do, but that dopamine hit isn't just a feel-good chemical. In this context, it is the neurological building block of self-trust.
Okay, I have to admit some skepticism here, though.
Bring it on.
Because I've tried the one small promise technique. I tell myself, I'll just do the bare minimum. I'll read one sentence. I do it, but, that's all I do.
Right.
And then 3 weeks later, I've read maybe 20 sentences total, and my English skills haven't noticeably improved at all. How is giving yourself permission to do something so microscopic, not just a convenient excuse to avoid doing the hard work?
That is such a common fear, but it misses the actual purpose of the exercise. The goal of that initial small promise isn't immediate linguistic mastery.
It's not.
No. The goal is identity shifting. Look, a massive hour-long routine is incredibly fragile. The moment the dog gets sick or the kids wake up early or an urgent email comes in, that large routine shatters.
Oh, absolutely. And when
Right.
it breaks, you just abandon it completely.
Right. But a microscopic routine is anti-fragile. You can read one English sentence even if the house is literally chaotic around you.
Because it takes 5 seconds.
Exactly. And by doing it every single day without fail, you shift your identity from I am someone who constantly fails to study to I am someone who keeps my promises to myself.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see.
Once that baseline of self-trust is established, the volume and duration of your practice will naturally expand because the internal resistance to starting has been completely eliminated.
That makes a lot of sense. Because that resistance is always highest when we first wake up. Which brings us to this concept from the source of the scattered mind.
Yes, the scattered morning brain.
The source describes mornings as inherently scattered. Your mind feels completely unfocused, pulled in 100 different directions the second you look at your phone. My favorite phrase from the material is that mornings often host a worry that has no appointment.
That line is so poetic and painfully true. Waking up and immediately remembering 3 things you forgot to do yesterday while anticipating a stressful meeting that doesn't even happen until Thursday.
Right. The cognitive clutter is just overwhelming. You're just trying to make a piece of toast, and suddenly you're panicking about a tax document.
It's a terrible way to start the day.
So if your brain is already running in a dozen different directions, trying to force a heavy academic English lesson into that space feels like just another stressful predator chasing you.
Yes. And the material uses a brilliant Spuffle analogy here. It says a routine gives your thoughts a chair.
A chair. I love this idea of furniture for thoughts.
Right. It provides a physical and mental place for your focus to land amidst all that morning chaos.
But how do we actually do that? How do we stop the English words from just running away quietly when we need them in conversation?
What's fascinating here is the distinction the source makes between a habit and a ritual.
Okay, habit versus ritual. What's the difference?
To build that chair, we have to understand this. A habit is automated, and it's often mindless, like brushing your teeth. That's a habit. You don't think about the existential meaning of the toothpaste while you do it.
No, you're usually thinking about the tax document again.
Exactly. But a ritual is an action you return to because it holds personal meaning. It requires your intentional presence. It feels welcoming rather than obligatory.
So it's the stark difference between standing over the sink, aggressively swiping through a digital flashcard app because you feel guilty.
Later is choosing to sit down with your coffee, taking a deep breath, and slowly reading one beautiful paragraph in English.
That sounds so much better.
When you create a ritual, you give English a dedicated, safe place to live in your daily rhythm. You are actively inviting the language to sit at the table with you.
And what does that do for learning?
It drastically lowers your affective filter. That's the emotional block in your brain that prevents language acquisition when you are stressed or anxious.
Ah, So if I'm stressed, the words literally can't get in.
Right. If English is always associated with the panic of a scattered morning, your brain will block those words when you are under pressure in a real conversation. But if English is associated with the calm warmth of a morning ritual, those words become familiar and accessible when you actually need to speak them.
You stop attacking the language and start inviting it in. That is beautiful.
It really changes the relationship you have with the learning process.
But let's look at the reality of maintaining this over time. Say I go this perfect chair, I have my ritual, I'm sitting down with my coffee, and my one English sentence for 30 days straight.
Okay, going strong.
But then life explodes. I have to
Yeah.
travel for work, I get a terrible flu, and I completely drop the ritual for an entire week.
It happens to all of us.
The modern productivity mindset, those apps that track your streaks, that mindset tells us that breaking the chain means we've destroyed our progress.
The streak is broken, back to zero.
Right. The psychological weight of returning to the notebook after a 5-day absence is heavily tinged with shame. You feel like you ruined it.
Those apps tracking daily streaks have unintentionally weaponized our habits against us.
They really have. They make you feel terrible.
They promote this idea that progress is a relentless, unbroken, upward line. But the source material counters this by shifting the metaphor away from mechanics and into agriculture.
Agriculture. Okay, tell me more.
Think about it. You don't stand over a garden and shout at your plants to grow faster.
I mean, maybe some people do, but it doesn't work.
Right, you cultivate them. You water the soil. Cultivation acknowledges that progress is often completely invisible on the surface while the roots are growing underneath.
So when you build that daily foundation, you are growing an intricate root system.
Exactly. Taking a few days off because you are sick does not instantly obliterate the roots you spent months cultivating.
That is so freeing to hear.
The true test of discipline is not achieving a perfect multi-year streak. That is a total myth. The defining characteristic of self-trust is the ability to return to the practice without self-punishment.
Without beating yourself up.
Right. The return itself is the victory. When you open that English book after a messy, chaotic week away and you refuse to insult yourself, you are making a profound statement. You are saying, I am still here. I am still learning.
I am still here. Wow. Removing the shame from the return is incredibly powerful because it neutralizes the guilt that usually causes people to just quit entirely.
It does, and every time you return, you are doing fundamental neurological work. You are actively rewiring the physical pathways in your brain.
Rewiring from what to what?
You're breaking the old, deeply ingrained pattern of, I am too overwhelmed, I will deal with this language later, and forging a new pathway that says, I touch English early.
I touch English early, making that tiny point of contact before the day accelerates and the excuses multiply.
That consistency, even when interrupted by the messy realities of life, fundamentally rewires your relationship with the language and with your own capability.
So we have this profound philosophical shift going on here. We are prioritizing self-trust over punishment. We are recognizing the difference between a mindless habit and a grounding ritual, and we're focusing on cultivating roots rather than forcing immediate results.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
But what makes this source material particularly actionable is that it doesn't just leave us with abstract concepts. It actually equips us with specific English vocabulary to articulate this exact psychological experience.
Which is so important. The language we use to describe our struggles heavily influences our ability to overcome them.
This is a crucial intersection of psychology and linguistics. Often, English learners rely on very basic, sometimes deeply negative phrases to describe their process, just because they lack the tools to express nuance.
Yeah, they use words that inadvertently trap them in a mindset of failure.
Right, so the source highlights 6 specific mental models, disguised as vocabulary words. These are scattered, ritual, foundation, cultivate, anchor, and rewire.
Let's look at how reframing our reality with these words actually changes our experience.
Let's do it. A common phrase learners use is, my morning is messy.
Right.
But messy is a judgment. It implies a moral failing, as if you are inherently a disorganized, chaotic person. But if you replace that by saying, I feel scattered when I don't have a routine, you completely change the dynamic.
Scattered is a phenomenal word because it describes a physical state of being spread too thin. It implies physics, not a character flaw.
I love that. Physics, not a flaw.
Yeah. If something is scattered, it can simply be gathered. It removes the personal shame and clearly identifies the problem as a lack of focus, not a lack of worth.
So what does this all mean for the next word? Another transformation the source provides is moving away from the phrase, I study English.
Oh, I hear that one all the time.
I study sounds like an obligation. It sounds like high school homework that you're being forced to do under threat of a bad grade.
It does.
But if you change that to, I make English part of my morning ritual, you shift from obligation to identity. A ritual is something you own.
Notice the agency in that sentence. You aren't just absorbing information passively. You are designing an environment.
That's empowering.
It really is. Then we look at the word cultivate. The most universal phrase uttered by every language learner on the planet is, I want to improve.
Oh, yeah. Everyone says that. I want to improve my English.
But improve is a relentless, exhausting metric. It demands an upward trajectory every single day.
Improve induces panic the moment you plateau.
Exactly. But saying, I want to cultivate my English slowly, introduces grace. You cannot force a seed to grow by aggressively pulling on its leaves right.
That would just kill the plant.
Right. You cultivate the soil, ensure it has sunlight, and trust the process. Cultivate implies patience with the seasons of your own learning. It means you are nurturing your skills daily rather than demanding instant fluency.
We also have the concepts of foundation and anchor. Learners often say, my routine helps me. It's true, but it's vague.
Very vague.
But saying, a simple routine gives my day a strong foundation, visually grounds the concept. You don't need to see the entire architectural plan of a skyscraper to lay the first concrete block. You just need a solid base to stand on while the chaos swirls around you.
An anchor operates similarly, saying, my morning ritual is an anchor for my day.
Yeah, think about being on a boat.
Right. When the waters get incredibly rough, when the emails are piling up, the kids are screaming, and the stress is peaking, that 10-minute morning ritual is the heavy, solid object that prevents you from drifting completely out to sea.
It holds you in place. And finally, we have rewire.
This is a great one.
Instead of the generic, I want to change my bad habits, saying I am rewiring my brain, acknowledges the physiological reality of what you are doing. You are not just making a wish. You are physically changing the neural pathways in your mind through repeated action.
This raises an important question, though, for everyone listening. How do you bring these words out of your notebook and into your real life?
Yeah, because it's vital to understand that utilizing words like scattered, cultivate, or rewire is not about trying to sound artificially sophisticated.
No, not at all.
It is not about dressing up your English to impress a native speaker. It is entirely about giving yourself the precision to make your truth easier to say.
Exactly. If your internal state feels chaotic, scattered is simply the most honest word. If your daily practice feels intensely personal and protective, ritual is the only word that does it justice.
The ultimate utility of a language isn't just passing a proficiency exam. It is the ability to accurately project your internal reality outward so that you can be fully understood by another human being.
And when you possess the exact words to describe your psychological state, you gain mastery over that state.
So, to bring all these threads together for you as you listen today, the most liberating takeaway from today's discussion is that your daily foundation absolutely does not need to be perfect.
It really doesn't.
The flawless 2-hour morning routine is a destructive illusion manufactured by Night You. Your morning doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be honest.
One single sentence. Read slowly and deliberately over a cup of coffee. One deeply held, fiercely protected small ritual.
That's all it takes.
That microscopic action is all it takes to touch the language early, to definitively prove to yourself that you showed up, and to lay down the first brick in an unbreakable foundation of self-trust. We challenge you today to define your own specific anchor. What is one honest, incredibly small promise you can make to yourself tomorrow morning?
Find that one quiet handshake you know you can honor. Because that invisible moment of self-trust is the exact place where real fluency begins.
It really is.
Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to dissect as you move through the rest of your day.
Something to ponder.
Yeah. If mastering a complex foreign language and fundamentally rewiring your self-trust simply requires one small, meticulously kept promise rather than a massive, painful overhaul, what other overwhelmingly complicated areas of your life are you currently trying to fix all at once that would immediately benefit from this exact same quiet approach?
That's a great question to end on.
Something to think about. Thanks. We'll catch you next time.